Hey there, in this video, I will show you how to ace the functional questions in the Amazon interview. I'm Nick, a former Amazon bar raiser. I have interviewed hundreds of Amazon candidates. I have certified many other bar raisers into existence, and I know very deeply how the Amazon interview process works. Over the course of 7 videos, I am sharing with you a proven formula, a proven continuous approach with which you can ace the Amazon interview, join Amazon, remake your career, and make hundreds of thousands of dollars in the process. Let us start with some context first. What are functional questions and how does Amazon use them in the interview process? Functional questions are subject matter questions which Amazon asks you as a candidate to evaluate your subject matter expertise in your professional field. If you are an engineer, if you're a marketer, if you're a solution architect, if you're a business person, so on and so forth, Amazon will ask you hypothetical role-playing questions to evaluate how deep your subject matter knowledge of the topic is. Let's take a look at a few sample questions that I've prepared to give you a sense of what functional questions look like. So starting off with a coding question, you're selling ice cream for $5 each to a line of people, and then the rest of the question tries to give you an outline of constraints for which you need to write a program, write an algorithm, and come up with a solution. The next question is a solution architect question where you're asked to design a distributed messaging system such as WhatsApp. The second question can also work as a design question in a coding interview. Then for marketing, a third example is what features on Amazon.com you dislike the most and what would you do to fix them? And for business development, another example, how would you convince the top grossing iOS app developer to port their app to Amazon's App Store? So that's how functional questions look like. Now let's talk about their place in the Amazon interview process. The Amazon interview is a marathon. There's many stages of the interview. The first stage is to submit your resume. We've already covered this during the previous video of our 7-day challenge series. The second stage is to have a phone screen with an Amazon interviewer. The third stage is to complete the online assessment test. The fourth stage is to have a phone screen with the Amazon hiring manager. Amazon calls this a phone screen, but it's really a video call over Amazon Chime. The fifth stage is to submit a written sample or writing exercise if you are applying for a level 6 role or higher. And the final stage is to have the interview loop with 5 Amazon employees on the team who is looking to hire for the role. So as you can see, this is a lengthy process, and your functional expertise, also your answers to Amazon's functional questions, are going to comprise the majority of the initial stage of that interview process. So starting with your resume, going through the screen with the recruiter, then the online assessment, and all the way to the phone screen with the hiring manager, the majority of questions Amazon is going to ask you and content that they're going to evaluate you on is your functional proficiency and subject matter expertise. However, paradoxically, even if you excel functionally, Amazon can still fail you in the second half of the interview process on their behavioral / leadership principle questions. That half starts from the phone screen and ends with the interview loop stage. So your functional answers are incredibly important, but even if you're very strong at what you do, what's going to make or break you is your fit with the Amazon culture and behavioral leadership principles. So as the saying goes, what got you here won't get you there. And to use an analogy, if this is some sort of a dance competition, your original dance partner is going to take you to the final dance, but they're not going to be able to win it for you. However, without that original dancing partner, which in this case are your functional answers, you're not going to make it to the big dance anyway. So it's important to focus on your functional answers, particularly during the first half of the Amazon interview process. Okay, now that you know what the functional questions are and what their place is in the Amazon interview process, I'm going to share with you the 4 steps with which you can excel with your functional answers. For each of these 4 steps, I'm going to use the 4 sample questions I've prepared for you functionally to give you specific examples of how that step works. So step number 1 to ace your functional Amazon questions is to ask clarifying questions yourself. As soon as you hear the original question, ask 1 or 2 clarifying questions. Asking clarifying questions reveals that you are a deep thinker. You're not afraid to ask for additional context. You are considering outliers and cases that might not be so obvious. You're brave, you're bold, so on and so forth. So if we start with the first coding question I've prepared for you here, is the sequence of customers fixed or not? Do I start with a zero balance? Are there any constraints in the number of customers in line? Don't overdo the clarifying questions you ask. Ask no more than maybe 2 or 3 worst case scenario, but doing so would help your answer stand out. The second step you should take in order to excel with your Amazon functional answer is to come up with specific assumptions yourself and use data and illustrations. So in the second question I've prepared here, design a distributed messaging system similar to WhatsApp, you could just declare that, hey, I'm going to assume that there's going to be X number of users on the system, and that each user is going to send Y number of messages, and that each message is going to have Z size in bytes. And I'm going to use a storage system via DynamoDB. You walk the interviewer step by step with a very concrete set of assumptions that would illustrate a very concrete solution with data and specificity that they can sink their teeth into. You cannot make a mistake here by being specific. The only mistake you can make is by refusing to commit and waving your hands. Do not do that. The third step you should take in order to ace your Amazon functional answer is to answer how you would fix the problem in the short term. Going back to my examples here in the marketing question, what features on Amazon.com you dislike the most and how would you fix them? Something I dislike about Amazon now is each time I look up an item, I get recurring recommendations from the system later on. And for example, if I look up toilet paper for some reason, then forever afterwards, I get suggestions for toilet paper in my recommendations feed. That's not that relevant for me. That's something that I think we can improve in terms of customer experience. How do you fix this in the short term? Again, you got to provide specific assumptions and illustrations and answer those. You could say something along the lines of, I believe that we should weight the recommendations algorithm differently if you have purchased something, or if you have scored it and rated it, or if you've put it in your wish list, then we should provide maybe 75% of our recommendations based on these items. If you've just glanced at an item based on the duration of seconds of time when you were on the page of the item, we should weigh those and give you some smaller percentage, maybe 10, 15, 20% of your recommendations should be based on that. Moving on. The fourth key step in your Amazon functional answer should be how you resolve the problem in the long term. Using the BizDev question here as an example, come up with some think big, broader stroke solutions such as, hey, the App Store is a two-sided marketplace. We have developers and we have customers. So on the developer side of the marketplace, I could come up with some sort of a sharing plan where the developers who list their apps on our App Store would get a certain revenue share from even Amazon's first-party apps to convince them to stay with our platform. Again, the point here is not how accurate and spot on your answer is, your assumption is. It needs to make sense for sure. Don't say stupid things. But of much bigger substance is your ability in this step to look around corners, think boldly, and come up with long-term solutions which far exceed putting out the fire in the short term. Okay. One final point I want to make in this video is how you should practice your Amazon functional answers. We've covered 2 big sections so far. 1, what are the Amazon functional questions? What's their context? 2, how to answer them in a step-by-step fashion. And 3, now I'm going to cover how you can practice and how you can simulate those Amazon interview questions with AI chatbots like GPT, Gemini, so on and so forth. So AI chatbots are useful in 2 capacities. 1, to help you answer these functional questions and check how good your response is. And 2, to produce additional sample questions for you to continue to practice with. Let's start with the how you can use GPT to check your responses. So you can say, what engineering method should I use to answer the following Amazon functional interview question? Okay, let's see what GPT comes up with. You can use a greedy algorithm, GPT says. Steps in the greedy approach. Track your change, serve each customer in order. And they come up with this example Python code. It looks pretty decent, right? So it's a really good response. Now I should caution you that GPT is quite good at giving answers to coding questions and quantifiable questions. It's not as good at answering softer functional questions. So for example, the other 3 functional questions that we've come up with here, maybe GPT is not going to be that good at those. You can give it a try, but the strength of GPT and other chatbots is by far coming up with good hard answers to quantifiable math questions and coding questions. The next step is how you use GPT to generate other sample functional questions. Let's cover this next. We can say something like, could you please give me 5 other functional coding questions similar to the question above. Let's see what they come up with. Okay, perfect. Lemonade stand, gas station problem. There we go. So these are really good sample questions. Now let's up the ante and let's take another one of our sample questions here and see what GPT comes up with. Great, thank you. Could you please give me 5 other sample questions that are similar to the following business development question? Please come up with specific constraints and data that I need to resolve with my answers. Okay, so they're coming up with, how would you persuade a leading gaming company to launch an exclusive title on Amazon Prime Gaming? That's pretty good. However, there's not enough data points. I'd say, thanks, but could you please give me specific data, numeric constraints as you formulate these questions? Constraints in the questions as you formulate these questions. All right, certainly. Okay, there you go. This is a good sample question. There's 50 million active players, 20 million. The gaming company earns $20 million per month. The Amazon Prime Gaming has a smaller active user base of 25 million users, so on and so forth. These are excellent sample questions. You can see how GPT is exceptional at coming up with sample questions if you provide the right prompt. You can also prompt GPT with your resume and the job description, and it's going to produce outstanding results for you in terms of sample questions with which you can prepare over and over and over again. Okay, now that you've mastered how to answer the Amazon functional interview questions, you are ready for the next step, step number 3 in our 7-day challenge to get hired by Amazon and remake your career. In this next video here, I will show you step by step how to prepare for and ace the Amazon behavioral interview questions. You will encounter these questions in the second half of the Amazon interview process during your interview screen and your interview loop. So watch the video next here, and I'll see you there soon.